Welcome to AskReddit reading, let's get into it. Teachers of Reddit, what is the most ridiculous thing you have heard a parent say? I have a few stories, but my favorite happened to a coworker. This girl didn't study and skipped most of the questions on a test. Mom came in to argue about her daughter's failing grade and said she should only be graded on the questions she did answer, so therefore should have scored a 100 since a few she chose to answer were correct. This makes me wonder just how the parent got through school. By only taking the tests she passed. Had a nation kid that was acing everything. Straight A's. I told his mother that I think he is a little bored. She puffed up and said I will go home and speak to him about that at once. You just killed a poor little Asian kid. Here's my favorite ridiculous parent story with a happy ending. Kid obviously forges signature of dad on a failed test. Teacher calls the kid out on it. Dad comes in and insists that it is in fact his signature. His little prince can't get in trouble after all. 2 weeks or so later the dad comes into school outraged that he hasn't been informed of the big project causing the little prince so much stress. But you have been informed, says the teacher. Here's the slip I sent home for all the parents, and that's your signature, right? Right, says dad. Had a star athlete who was being recruited by Ivy League schools failing my English class. On top of his general poor academic performance, I also caught him cheating on a homework assignment which he vehemently denied. His mom scheduled a meeting with an administrator and proceeded to berate me and to accuse me of discriminating against student athletes. I was the pep club sponsor at the time. Then she said her son would never cheat. I pulled out his homework and proceeded to read one of his answers. As a 16-year-old girl, mom then begins yelling at him, "You can't even cheat right." Intellectual property is a real grey area in regard to blatant plagiarism. I remember my teacher caught a kid in our class who plagiarized her essay. As he was reading it, the teacher cut in and started reading something off the computer that was almost word for word what the kid wrote. Every single thing he handed in after that the teacher checked. I remember him claiming to write a song for this one girl he liked. I didn't know it at the time, but it turned out to be a Beatles song. So here's this song I wrote called Hey Jude. This one's for you, Sarah. After Thanksgiving, but before Christmas, one mom said, "If you don't let my daughter sing Oh Holy Night for the Christmas show, I'll withdraw her and my son from this school, and you'll never again have such talent." Truth is, her daughter couldn't sing on pitch, no matter what, and didn't even try, because she had zero interest in it. My wife is an elementary school teacher and suspected that one of her students may be autistic. The kid wouldn't communicate well at all, had issues with using the bathroom, and showed other classic signs of autism. My wife had a conference with the mother and explained that she would like him to be evaluated, but the mother refused and said that if her son did have autism, my wife was the one who caused it. I'm not a teacher, but I coach my kids' youth sports teams. I once had a dad approach me and bribe me $50 to prevent a certain kid from playing in our upcoming flag football game. These were 6-year-old kids. The kid did make a costly mistake in the previous game, but the fact that this random dad was willing to pay me to bench the kid was mind-blowing. I should have made it clear that I did not accept the money. How dare you tell my child that there were people before God existed? We were studying ancient Egypt and I mentioned that the priests they were reading about had similar roles to their priests and pastors. They just weren't Christian, since Jesus hasn't been born and Christianity hadn't started yet. I reminded the parents that there were parts of the Bible that took place before Jesus' birth. In Egypt. Clearly the student miscommunicated what I said and the parent chose to fly off the handle rather than ask me what happened. My significant other is 23 and just started recently as a high school English teacher. He's teaching summer school right now and a parent asked if he could stop dressing so well or if there was an older teacher available because his daughter won't stop talking about how handsome her teacher is. This family was incredibly well off. The little girl wore Matilda Jane clothing every single day, which is expensive. The individual pieces are between $40 to $60. She almost never wore the same thing twice. Compare her to little boy in my class. His dad was in and out of jail. He always wore dirty jeans and the same pair of boots. His mom cut his hair and you could tell. But he was full of personality. All the kids wanted to play with him. He got a little rowdy and did say some lightly inappropriate things like "that's badass" or "what the hell," but I would never peg him as a behaviorally challenged kid. Well, the rich mother approached my lead teacher and flat out demanded that her little girl never have contact with this boy because he was a bad influence. She wasn't to sit by him or speak to him or play with him. When we refused, she gave all these instructions to her daughter, who would approach the little boy and announce over the whole class, "You have to leave here so I can play." People never cease to piss me off. At parents' evening. Don't worry about my daughter, she's thick. She only needs to cook and clean. How is my son doing? For the taxes we pay, we expect our teachers to get our kids into any college we want. Got fired once because I gave a C- to the daughter of the president of the school board. Kid deserved a D. Slacker wouldn't do a darn thing. I like to think that she went on to flunk out of college. Parents' evening last year. Year 10, so 14 or 15 years old. Told a woman that her son was doing really well in English and was very bright. She actually scoffed and said, "Really?" The boy was sat there too. I asked what he was thinking of doing when he left school and he said he wanted to go to college to do A- levels. Kids at this school had ridiculously low aspirations, so this was music to my ears. His mother interjected and said, No, you're doing an apprenticeship. You're gonna be a plasterer like your dad." Now I have no problem with kids taking the vocational path as opposed to the academic. But this kid had a chance. And he wanted to take it. But his own mum made him feel that there was no point. So sad. This finally inspired me to make an account. Multiple times over the school year, she emailed me with something like, "My child has been coming home saying she has no homework in your class. I believe she should be having homework from your class every day. Can you please give her some homework?" 1. There was actually homework. 2. The kid was not turning in any homework that quarter. 3. The zeros were all reflected in the online grade report, which the parent apparently refused to read. Spanish class. Parent asked me to exempt her kid from speaking anything in Spanish. Said it made her daughter uncomfortable to say anything in Spanish. Every single adult should know where every single child is on campus at all times, the mom said, yelling at me. I had been giving her son extra help after school, along with some other students. We were 6 weeks in and mom hadn't come to back to school night or made any attempt to speak to or contact me. She came to pick up her son and had no idea where to go because she hadn't been to our school before or read the after school group flyer. Instead, she yelled at some other teachers who were waiting out in the front of the school with some of their own after school students to be picked up. They had no idea who she was or who her child was. She couldn't ask them where my class was because she didn't even know the name of her child's teacher. I walked up with her son as this was happening. She turned and continued to chew me out. She said a lot of ridiculous things that day. It was complete and blatant projection of irresponsibility. At the end of each year all the students' merits are tallied up and the top 3 students get a prize. One of the parents was complaining about how it's unfair their child started so low every year. It was a lot harder for them to get to the top. The list starts alphabetized. My mother is a retired college English teacher. Helicopter parents would regularly call to inquire about their kids' grades. Mom. That's confidential as per college policy. If you want to learn your child's grade, you're going to have to ask him or her. Parent. But I'm paying his or her tuition. Mom. It doesn't matter. Your child has a right to privacy. I can and will only discuss your child's grade with him or her. Parent. I'm calling the dean. Mom. By all means. Rinse and repeat, over and over and over. 3rd graders' parents come in with a notarized list of demands. Children in my class must be prohibited from bringing in gluten, ever. They said they didn't want her to feel left out because other kids were eating gluten. No, she didn't have celiac, it was just the family's personal choice. I let their daughter choose who she sits next to each day. The class had a carefully coordinated seating plan. She'd be exempt from history class because she was too advanced for our history class but not advanced enough for an AP class. Long story short, they switched her to private school before year's end. I used to be a preschool teacher, ages 4 and 5, and we did evaluations every few months. One 4-year-old girl, sweet as could be, could only count to the number 4. She struggled with other things, but the counting was by far the worst. Her parents come into the evaluation and are delighted that their daughter could count to 4. We had to gently explain to them that she was well behind the other kids. Even the actually challenged kids surpassed her. She was obviously bright, so we asked them what they worked on with her at home. Nothing. They did nothing with her. They assumed that she didn't or wouldn't start learning till teachers taught her. To their benefit, they did start working with her at home, and by the beginning of the next year she was ready to move up. I've never been so proud and disappointed at the same time in a set of parents.